Let's pray. Lord, we're mindful of, as we go outside, cold of our own mortality and the fact that we are vulnerable people. So many ways. We're grateful for a warm place to meet here. We're thankful for your provision, for giving us a community to live in, friends, systems, people who work on our behalf in so many ways, providing us all that we need to live well. We ask your blessing upon them, employees of our city. Lord, help them in their callings. Thank you for them. Lord, for those who serve on our behalf in elected positions, we ask you to help them as well. Thank you for their service. Lord, we need your help. We are people of varied emotions and mixed motives at times, so help us to do what is good and right. Help us to lean upon one another and to lean upon you for help and assistance and guidance, wisdom. We're grateful in this Advent season, Lord, for the promise of light coming into the world. We ask that your light would come here to this meeting, to these friends who lead and serve us in so many ways. Give us wisdom and discernment to know what is good and true and right, and to love what is good and true and right, and to lead in that way. In the name of Jesus Christ we pray. Amen.
Amen.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Good evening, everyone. It is 5:30, December 19th, 2022, and we'll call this meeting of the Fergus Falls City Council to order. Roll call, please. Here.
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 Yeah. Here.
Here.
Here. We have a quorum. First item of business this evening is the approval of the agenda, and I will call on our City Administrator, Andrew Bremseth, for any changes or corrections to the agenda as presented.
Thank you, Your Honor. Council members, good evening. I have a request to remove items 2 and 4 from the consent agenda. Otherwise, the agenda could be approved as presented this evening.
Thank you, Andrew. We can do that through a motion.
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Caroline. Thank you, Justin.
Your Honor.
All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Under awarding of bids, this evening we have one bid, and we would need a resolution awarding the bid for the HVAC equipment replacement project at the Pebble Lake Golf Course to Mission Mechanical, and we'll call on our Public Works Director, Guy Taylor. Good evening, Guy.
Good evening. Thank you, Your Honor. As I mentioned during a committee meeting back in October, the HVAC system at the clubhouse has shown to be inadequate due to increased use with Palmer's Restaurant and the age of the equipment. It's time to replace it. So we did get quotes for replacement of 4 furnaces that exist in the building, and then an additional rooftop unit that would serve the kitchen area. The quote that I'd like to have you approve is a quote from Mission Mechanical. Their quote was less expensive than the other quote that we received, and it included more of the work. The electrical work was included in the Mission Mechanical work. The other quote from the local contractor was not. So with that, I'd just like to have you pass a resolution to approve that project, awarding it to Mission Mechanical for the cost of $50,980 that would come from the Park and Rec golf course budget.
Thank you, Guy, and we can accomplish this through a resolution.
I'll make that.
Thank you, Brent.
I'll second.
Thanks, Krista. Any questions for Guy? Comments?
Is there a date or a time frame for when it would be completed?
Hopefully by opening of the season this spring. So hopefully by late March, early April.
Was that a part of the contract, or would it be? I guess that's where I was.
Yeah, it's dependent on availability of equipment.
Okay.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions for Guy? Roll call, please.
Yes.
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 That resolution is approved. There are no petitions or communications this evening under the consent agenda. There are 2 two remaining items if we remove items 2 and 4. So if anyone would like to remove either of the two remaining, otherwise we could take care of those two with a resolution.
I'll offer that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Tom.
I'll second.
Thank you, Jim. Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hafer.
Yes.
Tillman.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Item 2 is a motion approving the licenses. Was there a issue?
No, it was as much a question. Under tobacco 2023 is Elevate. I thought Elevate was is that the THC place downtown? So are they put under tobacco for THC, or are we defining?
We don't have a THC
License.
license in place yet. We're asking for that action later today. So in absence of that tobacco, or of the THC license, we had them each take out a tobacco license, each business wanting to sell. And then we will clean up that once we have a license in place.
Right. Thank you. That was my question on that one.
Thank you. So we could approve
I'll make that.
with a motion. Thank you, Anthony.
I'll second.
Thank you, Caroline. Any other questions on any licenses? All in favor of approving that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Item number 4 would be a resolution authorizing the advertisement of bids for public improvement 5314, which is the Union and Lincoln Avenue resurfacing project. Anthony, you have a question on that one as well?
Yeah, my kind of question or concern was, we're going to be doing the work in this parking lot, obviously between City Hall and Lincoln. Are they going to be concurrent? Parking obviously is kind of a premium as such, and if we're kind of blocking Lincoln on the one side downtown, and then we've sort of got this project, what's the likely timing on this project to be?
Thanks, Anthony. Brian, would you like to address that?
Yeah, thank you, and good evening, Your Honor, members of the council. Very good question, Councilmember Hicks. We don't have the schedule for right now. I did note in the memo and everything, when the work is taking place on Lincoln, one of the objectives was to maintain business operations to the fullest extent. So therefore, we'd be permitting construction on, let's say, the north half of the project, while there's maybe perhaps eastbound traffic, and then we'd be switching it over. That was in consideration of, like you mentioned, some of the congestion we do have in the area. There will be some difficulties and everything during the construction, but this is a resurfacing project. It kind of hinders on what we're going to be doing in these intersections with the ped ramps, and then also the alternate I noted in there.
Yeah.
But for purposes right now, there is that phase traffic control plan for this work.
So hopefully that would.
Yes, we will have the pre-construction meetings and everything, and we will be working jointly with the projects, expressing the need to open up temporary provisions. However, we do need some level of space, time to get some of these intersections completed. So
Yeah. Okay.
I felt it was far better than closing down the whole
Whole street.
corridor,
Yeah.
even though it could be more expensive, but that's where we're at right now.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
Any other questions for Brian? Would someone like to offer a resolution?
I'll make that, Your Honor.
Thank you, Anthony. Brent, was that a second? Second. Thank you. Any further questions? Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Ferguson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hafer.
Yes.
Tillman.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. Under ordinance and resolutions, tonight we have 4 items for consideration. The first would be a first reading of ordinance 35, 8th series, dealing with THC product sales. Tonight I anticipate there may be some questions, but for right now, we just need that introduced.
I just got one question. But it's more, just so that I read it correctly, on page 7, under other illegal acts, it says, it shall be a violation of this ordinance for any person under the age of 21 to have any THC product in his or her possession. This subdivision shall not apply to persons under the age under the age of 21 who are lawfully involved in compliance checks or employees of licenses who are at least 18 years of age. So does that mean that you have to be 18 years of age to be involved in a compliance check? Right? But less than 21? Right. Okay, thank you.
Someone like to introduce it?
I'll do that, Your Honor.
Tom, okay, thank you, Tom. Any other questions at this point? Well, again, this will come back for a second reading. We'll have time to discuss then. All right, enough. Item number 2 is a resolution authorizing staff to apply for a $10,000 grant from the Otter Tail Lakes Country Association for a welcoming community assessment and plan from the University of Minnesota Extension Center for community vitality. We'll call on our community development manager, Clara Beck. Good evening, Clara.
Good evening, Mayor and Council. Yes, there is an opportunity through the Otter Tail Lakes Country Association to be involved with the Welcoming Communities cohort. This is through Minnesota Extension. The grant would be through Otter Tail Lakes County. This would enable the City of Fergus Falls and its partners to undergo an assessment of the community and then to create a plan based on that assessment that engages the community in diversity, equity, and inclusion work. We have had lots of different groups throughout the years who have undertaken some of this work. We don't have any that are active currently. So I do think this is a space that could be really nicely activated by being part of this cohort. So the request before you tonight is to allow staff to make an application to that program and see if we make the cut to be part of that cohort through the county.
Thanks, Clara. Questions from council? Someone like to offer a resolution? Scott, you had a question?
Question or comment?
Okay. Let's get a resolution on the floor first. Someone like to offer?
I'll thank you, Honor.
Thank you, Justin.
I'll second.
Thanks, Caroline. Go ahead, Scott.
I'm going to be voting against this resolution and wanted to explain why. First of all, it's another, I think to use Anthony's words, it's another plan and it's another study, and we do a lot of plans and we do a lot of studies, and so if I can steal that from you, Anthony, I will. The potential for this becoming a very expensive thing, I think, is pretty high, and it's something where they can come in at what seems to be a pretty low cost to just do the study, and then the next thing you know, it's mandated requirements for this, that, and the other thing, and I don't think that we need to do this, so I'm not going to support this. I'll leave it at that.
Thanks, Scott. Any other questions?
I think
Comments?
I would concur a little bit with what Scott's saying. Is like, what's it going to lead to in terms of, future commitment to where we go? I mean, obviously, I like the idea of getting some grant money, but nothing in the world comes free. I mean,
Clara,
we get the grant and we spend the money, then, then what?
Maybe an important distinction to make would be this is coming through the University of Minnesota Extension Office. They, as far as I know, cannot hand down any mandates to a city to say, you've been part of this program, therefore you must do X, Y, or Z. So this would all be very much led by the cohort from Fergus Falls, which would include hopefully members of City Council, our partners in economic development, all kinds of other partners across the different sectors, healthcare, et cetera. So they would really be finding solutions, I think, that would fit Fergus Falls and what our needs may be based on the assessment. I wouldn't assume that that means that we're going to have to spend a bunch of extra money, but at this point in the process, I mean, I guess we don't know what the analysis is going to tell us.
So also, to apply for a grant doesn't, you mean you still have to accept the grant? I would assume that it would come back to the council for accepting if we're awarded the grant. Is that accurate?
Yeah, we could bring it back for acceptance.
With any conditions of the grant? Is that,
And just to
Tom?
reiterate what Clara said, I mean, ultimately, we decide what money we spend. So if they come back and say we want more money, we could say thanks, but no thanks if we choose to. We're not obligated to anything.
Other questions, comments? Roll call, please.
Rufer,
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
No.
Fish.
Yes.
Hager,
Yes.
Kwame,
No.
That resolution is approved. Thank you, Clara. Item number 3 is a resolution of support for the Minnesota State Active Transportation Infrastructure Program and authorizing submission of final application.
Thank you, Your Honor. Back in early October, representatives from the local bike and pedestrian group introduced this Minnesota State Active Transportation Infrastructure Program to the City Council. The City Council then motioned staff to submit the letter of intent for this program. In late October, I received notice that the letter of intent supplemental information provided meets the program eligibility requirements. Since then, I have begun the final application process that is due December 30th, 2022, end of this month. But one of the components of the final application requires the applicant's governing council to certify that the governing body supports the project and funds, if any, required to be supplied by the applicant to complete the project are available and committed to this project. Noted in your packet, we met with city staff, local school members, and also members of the local bike and pedestrian committee. We identified primarily 4 projects that center around Cleveland Elementary School and high school. These cost estimates were developed and submitted along with a letter of intent. I just want to note, if we're successful with these funds, construction could begin in summer of 2023, however, likely 2024, based on staffing and allow for design time. Just want to note, it was noted at that October meeting that no local match is required. However, if the state funding is awarded and we're successful, this funding is reserved for construction of infrastructure only. Applicants need to cover the engineering, design, and right-of-way acquisition costs if needed on their own, since these are not eligible expenses for this program. I'm estimating, with all those 4 options and everything, a total estimated project cost of $441,000. Of that, with construction costs and construction contingency, it would be the state request of totaling $373,200 from this program. However, the other funding source for engineering, design, and administration testing it amounts to about $67,800. That is a local match that we would have to encumber, but has not been identified at this time. So I'll open up to any discussion, but what I'm going to be requesting is a resolution of support from the City Council for the Minnesota State Active Transportation Infrastructure Program and authorization to submit the final application.
Thank you, Brian.
I'll offer that.
I'll second it.
Thank you, Scott. Thank you, Tom. Questions for Brian? Yeah, Scott, please.
Brian, when this group of options was first presented to us, there must have been, maybe 10 or even more different places or different options. And am I remembering that right, that you got 4 out of what was the original list? Was it like 10 or 12 different things?
Councilman Kwame, I can't remember for sure. This program for an applicant is capped at $500,000. So with our request, we based them on priority and needs, and then obviously funding needed, and I guess that's where we kind of steered us into these 4 options at this time.
Well, I don't have a problem with any of the options. In fact, I think that particularly the stairs over between Kennedy and the Votech area, and then the sidewalk along Cleveland are pretty important and good. I just recall that there were many other sidewalks in various places, and I was just wondering what % of what we were hoping to get this might address. That's all right.
Bill, did you have a comment?
So one thing we need to talk about as a group is how are we going to fund that local match? Because I do recall back when this was presented, I believe I asked at that time, is there a local match? No, there isn't, so then I didn't worry about it. Well, now it comes back 67,000, but we don't have that in our street budget. We don't have it in a park budget. So we would have to figure out how would we do that. And you as a council, how do we want to do that? This was something came up, not in our CIP plan, for 2023. So I don't have funds set aside for this one. So one, certainly, is there an option? Do you do an interfund loan to cover that, and then you start levying for that in 2024 so that we, pay that back over a couple years or something? I don't know. But I want to hear from council members what you guys think.
Do we have the extra money in the liquor store?
It's possible. I could look there and see if with, we did take 400,000 for phase one, so I could go look there and see. I don't have that answer for you tonight, though, but you need to apply, don't you?
Need a resolution, to submit the
Yeah.
application end of the month.
The other thing, Your Honor, I would add to, I share all the concerns Bill has, and we've talked about it at length. The other thing I would offer up is if there is one of these projects or two that is, in your mind, more important or more valuable, you could trim the extent of this application, which would drive down the cost related to engineering. So if the project by Roosevelt or Kennedy Secondary School had merit to it in your mind and you wanted to focus on that, we could eliminate what that local, or reduce what that local match would be, should that be an appealing option as we try to address the question and concern Bill just raised, because I think it's a legitimate concern. We have to identify where this money's coming from. And, there's a little bit of frustration on staff's part, not with the council, but with the fact that it was presented to us by a community member as no match, and then we spend resources and staff time to put work into this, and then all of a sudden, we wrap up our budgeting work and all those things, and there's a surprise here. So we're reeling a little bit trying to figure that out, but, just want to provide options that we could reduce the scope, we could reduce the cost, or we could explore these funding mechanisms that we're now beginning to discuss.
And we do have some funds in the Trails and Paths budget, but not that much.
Right, we'd wipe the fund.
Yeah, we'd wipe that out.
Because if we reduce the scope, is it going to be the same percentage is it going to be the same percentage for the engineering, presumably?
That's where
Just
it's
a-
made, per given option, about 20%.
Claire?
Can you also clarify what year the funding would come through from because the TAP program goes out several years, right? What year would this funding come through for the city?
They haven't identified that quite yet because that's what, in part of the final application, they're requesting construction either in 2023 or 24, so then they can gauge disbursement of funds. That's part of the application.
Brent?
Yeah, I mean, if we've done all this work and we put in for the grant and we get it, I mean, is it something that we can turn down once we have it? I mean, so if we go ahead and put in for the grant now, we've got time to try to figure out where the money's going to come from. And in the meanwhile, if we want to either trim back or if there's other sources, I mean, who else? I mean, some of these look like they're on school property. I mean, are they benefiting from it? As
Yes.
far as maybe even getting, some of financial assistance from them because they're going to be benefiting from these sidewalks. I mean, we could put in for the grant, and if for some reason we can't come find out where we're going to come up with the money or trim back enough, we can back away from it. But in the meanwhile, there looks like there's several other entities here that are benefiting from this, being on school property and everything else where maybe they need to kick in a little bit.
So is the engineering work that they are requiring done after, is it done as part of the application, or is it done after the grant's received?
Your Honor, I probably would not start on design until we had an award.
So
on
what
that.
Brent is
I'd
saying
probably
is-
do enough work for the final application and submission, and then see if we're awarded before we continue the process.
So what Brent is suggesting would be a viable alternative then? Without incurring any further costs until we identify a source, but still going forward with the application?
Yeah, if awarded, it would be presented back to the city council for approval too. Now, in the interim, if we can negotiate if budgetary constraints and everything, we could talk to the program administration and perhaps shorten the work scope too with some of these options.
Bill, are you comfortable with that?
I mean, certainly, if you apply, of course you can always turn it down, but that's of course not a good, if we're going to apply, we don't want to be the ones that go to the state for money and then, say, no thanks, but I also, I mean, I get these are good projects too. You know, they are good projects with quite a bit of funding. Our portion isn't that high. It's just, it's a little bit of a bugger because, you know, it'd be good if we could build this stuff through a capital improvement plan, determine how we're gonna pay for it, and then go forward and apply, but I'll work through with you. I'm probably speaking too much.
Bill's very good at finding money.
But we can't always do that.
Yeah.
I understand.
We gotta,
I mean, I think, you know, we kind of, I mean, Andrew was kind of like, you know, can we prioritize them and do we have to do all four? And I think, you know, I mean, you know, obviously like option 4 is, you know, $73,000. So, you know, I mean, there's, you know, out of the 4 projects, which ones, you know, which ones ultimately do we kind of, would you like to do? Because that would reduce the commitment, because we've depleted the liquor store fund dramatically. I mean, we don't have a lot of cash in there.
I mean, we're still
Yep.
in a good position,
Yeah,
but
but
to prioritize what's there too,
Yeah.
so.
So would it make sense to do that tonight before we submit the application as submitted? Like that we narrow that down to 2 projects,
I mean, you know, to me,
1 and 2?
I personally like 1 and 3. 2 and 4, we could wait. But I mean, 1 is the sort of the Cleveland one, you know, and then obviously 3 was the Randolph, which I think I think that one's even more important because we're going to do an aquatic center on this street as well. I mean, number 4, it's kind of nice, but it exists. And number 2, there's no yellow on there. It's just putting some lights and things up, so tidying up. But I think that would reduce the scope. Then we don't have to find as much money. But I'm with Bill. Having applied, there's nothing looks worse than turning them down, because then the next time we apply, they'll remember, or somebody will. So I would make a motion that we. Oh, is it a motion or a resolution?
So we have a
We have
resolution, we have a
a-
motion
so,
on
yeah.
the floor,
Yeah,
so
yeah.
we would, if we need to amend this resolution, otherwise we'll vote on
Yeah.
this. I think it was Tom made the motion, or I'm sorry, the
Scott.
resolution.
Scott and Tom.
Scott
So,
seconded?
Yeah. But whether we amend it to include project 1 and 3, I mean, that would bring you down to,
It's about 42,000.
yeah. So,
Just quick math.
Scott, what do you?
I can see the rationale, and I think it makes sense to try and make an adjustment here. One of the things that I guess I could point out is that when we can improve our situation with an asset worth over so many $100,000 and our cost is, 10%, it's a nice way to get something that we would not otherwise get. I mean, if we don't include these projects at this point, when would we? What chance is it that they would be on our list to do anytime soon? Because as you said, they're not on our CRP.
Right.
It wasn't anything that was really on our radar. It was sort of fell to us. And yet, now that it has fallen to us, and if we can get it at 10%, well, it sure sounds like a good deal, if we can find a way to pay for it. And I guess if we've got the option to still skip the items and not do them, even if we go with all 4 items right off the bat, we do take a chance of, somebody at the state level being unhappy with us, but I don't know.
Sounds like you want to vote on.
Is that really worth passing
resolution?
on a couple of projects that we would not otherwise be able to do? So that's where it goes in my mind.
So it sounds like you want to vote on the original resolution? That's,
I think I'd like to, yeah.
sounds good. Justin?
I mean, obviously, the comments have been, I think we're all on the same page, and I agree with Scott to the extent that if we can get 90% of it paid for and figure out to cover 10, you know, but I also understand cutting projects too. I like it. Bill mentioned it. I think if I understand it right, we could do an interterm loan for this year because it's not in the budget. And then the tax levy committee in 2023 would, when they'd budget for 2024, you could work through trying to find money in that tax year. Is that how that would work?
Yeah, if we did an interfund loan, then we would, you know, put that in the budget to pay that back. I mean, I totally get what you're saying, and I'm not trying to muddy the waters too much. I just, of course, I wish we could have planned for this in there, and I mean, we just adopted the budget, and then it's like, ugh, but I also get what you're saying as far as, you know, it's a small portion to put in towards the big project, so I see that side too, and that's.
And my thoughts just to follow up would be, if we could do that, I think we should look past just this year and say there were other projects that came before the decisions to cut it down to these 4. And so there were other projects that probably could have been done too or tacked onto this, so that it was already cut down. So I don't disagree with any of the comments that were said, but I think if we could move forward and build it into the future budget, because it's a small percentage when we look at our overall scope of the projects.
Thanks, Justin. Okay, so there's a resolution on the, yes, Jim.
You know, if you could find some money this year from liquor store or whatever and not have to go as big as a interfund.
Absolutely,
It would help
yeah.
also.
Right.
No, and we'll look in our general fund trails and paths budget. I know we have others that need resurfacing too, but we'll look at those various, certainly to minimize it as much as possible.
Yes, if I could just add one other thing then, would be if in the timing of this, we could, I think that the impression is that option number 3 with the steps by Roosevelt is probably the highest priority item. If we were able to do that one sooner, do that in 2023 and delay the other 3 items until 2024, it would make the budgeting that much easier. So to the degree that we can affect the timing of things, we can probably manage that a little bit better. But then also, I think what Brent said bears repeating, and that the property owners that are going to be involved here, primarily the school, I don't think it would be wrong to go and ask them for some money. And then if we can pick up, 50% from them or something, all the better. So I think that we need to look to those options before we just assume that we're going to carry the whole load.
But if you look at the school for money, they've also done their budgeting and they don't have money in there either, so.
But we can ask.
All right, so we
Don't go
have,
till you ask.
we have a resolution of support for the Minnesota State Active Transportation Infrastructure Program and authorization to submit the final application. Roll call, please.
Rufer,
Yes.
Ferguson,
Yes.
Thompson,
Yes.
Gustafson,
Yes.
Hicks,
No.
Fish,
Yes.
Edberg,
Yes.
Kwame.
Yes.
The resolution is approved.
Thank you.
Thank you, Brian. Item number 4 is a resolution allowing city staff to retain the services of Baker Tilly regarding an application for tax increment financing for FM Bank. And I will call on our city finance director, Bill Sommer. Clara Beck, sorry. See,
I almost went, huh?
thank you, Clara.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is a very early in the process with this request, but FM Bank is requesting that the city retain the services of Baker Tilly to do some financial analysis to see if a requested council for TIF financing for a possible development project would be something that council is interested in. So this is generally what we do in our TIF process, is we will come to you and we will say we'd like to engage services of Baker Tilly. You let us know if that's something that you're interested in, and then we can move the process forward. So there will be a lot more information forthcoming if we do start this process, but FM Bank is interested in a new location in Fergus Falls. They're considering what it would look like to apply for some subsidy or incentive from the city, and this would be the first step of that process to have Baker Tilly take a look at their proposed project and finances and see if there is a need for assistance from the city, since that is one of the first parts of our subsidy process, is to determine is there a but-for. So any questions. I don't have a ton of information about the project at this point beyond the fact that they are just interested in starting this process.
Thanks, Clara. Anthony?
Have we ever funded a bank before? I mean, it's not, banks are kind of notably kind of quite rich. And to give tax increment financing to a profitable business,
I don't believe we have in the past.
And I think what makes this request potentially different is the location. I don't know if I'm allowed to say the location yet.
I think if they can't disclose things, then I don't think that's fair to ask us to vote on something. You're asking us to give money to somebody that doesn't want to disclose what they want to do. So I don't think that that's, I don't think that's fair to us or to the citizens of Fergus Falls. And notably, as I said, you don't see many banks, suffering too much at the moment. That's
Just
my
a reminder, and not to discount anything that
I
you've
know.
said, because it's
It's
worthwhile
mutual.
to think about. The city does not pay Baker Tilly for this. We do get money in escrow from the company who's applying, and then that money is used. So the city is not putting anything forth at this point. But eventually, if this does go through, then yes, the city would be providing some subsidy.
The thing is, though, that Baker Tilly I've yet to see one of their studies that come back and say that this project is not eligible.
Yeah, it would really come down to the wishes of the council at
Yeah.
the point when the information would come back.
They always work it to be an eligible project.
Justin, did you have a?
I was just gonna maybe clarify from my own knowledge. My understanding was that where this wouldn't be a cost to the city to hire the consultant to go through the process and the study. Then it would come back before the council, whether we agreed as a council of the study or not. But the city wouldn't be putting up resources and to find that answer. I think from being a business-friendly community, as we are, or we strive to be, it's a business in town that is looking at exploring another option. I think if it doesn't cost us anything to hire an expert that's supposed to go through the analysis, I don't see why we wouldn't, as long as we're not putting up our own time and money. So I just wanted to make sure that's how I understood this agreement.
Thanks, Justin. Scott?
When the subject of tax increment financing comes up, we typically are looking for what the benefit to the city is going to be, and most often it's going to be, is this going to bring some jobs in? And then the other thing that we've talked about is housing, and those would be the two areas that get the most headlines, when we talk about TIF funding. And if we don't have any information as to whether this is going to be some project that's going to either create jobs or bring in housing, it's hard to get very supportive of it. But I think what Justin has said as far as being business friendly and the fact that it wouldn't cost us anything is fine with me. But it would be nice to know more about what they're asking. Or proposing, I guess, what they're proposing.
Your Honor,
Yeah.
we just had a debate about something that wasn't going to cost us anything, and then it turned out cost us $68,000. So I'm just saying, be careful with Trojan horses.
That's a good point.
And it will cost us something, because ultimately, Baker Tilly will come back and they will say that this is the tax increment finance district, and therefore, we will be giving abatement of some description on property tax.
If we approve it,
So,
if we approve the TIF.
yep.
It has to be approved by the council
Yeah.
before it goes through.
So that decision is yet to come.
So what's the wishes of the council? There's a request to retain the services of Baker Tilly for the study that is been put forth by the business.
Your Honor, may I ask just timing of this? Is there a pressing time constraint for them, or?
I think we're hoping to see something back from Baker Tilly around February-ish.
Well, I would say that as long as it's not coming out of the city's pocket, we might as well proceed and let the process go. And then when all of the information is presented to us, we can decide if we want to approve the TIF or not. You know, as far as the profitability of a business, I mean, where do we draw the line with that? You know, do we, in the future, I mean, I just don't, I don't know. I don't know how we go about using that metric to determine, you know, what, I mean, I can see, you know, Scott's point about housing and employment, you know, being priorities for us, and we can, you know, use that accordingly at the time. But I would say we do the study, find out what's on the table, and proceed from there. You know, it could be a development, it's going to be a huge economic boon for the city and something that we're interested in doing, or it might not. We don't know.
Thanks, Tom.
I was just thinking if, I mean, maybe I shouldn't say this, but I'm gonna say it anyway. We have a new council starting in a couple of weeks. If it wasn't a timing issue, maybe the new council gets to weigh in on this, because obviously it's gonna be something in the future. But I mean, I agree with everything Anthony said too. I've never known of a bank that needs extra financing, so I don't disagree with that. But I'm also not an expert in that field of what they're exploring either. So I think it would behoove us to at least get more knowledge and understanding of what they want to do in our community, because they're already a business in town. So I'd be in favor of getting to that point where we can make an educated decision as a council, as long as it doesn't cost us time and money. But whether the council thinks we should wait for the new council or...
Well, I think it would probably be in the interest of, if it's not a timing thing, of the business too, before they spend their money to do a study that this council or a new council isn't interested in following through on. That would be, you know, it's not going to cost the city any money, but it doesn't look good on the city to allow them to do a study that the city's not going to ultimately support, regardless of what Baker and Tilly says. So I don't know where they're at with their, you know, with their plans. If they have any ability to, you know, come to the council and at least give an idea of if they're increasing jobs or some reason that would give the council, you know, a desire to move forward. But again, that's up to the council. So there's not a resolution on the floor.
I would make the resolution then that we push this to the first meeting in
Motion.
January. A motion?
Motion. Motion.
You recall, though, typically our first meeting in January, the new council doesn't take business usually, other
Yeah,
than just...
we can move it to the second council
Yeah,
meeting.
if that's...
Motion to move to the second council meeting.
Thank you.
So is there someone else to?
I'll
Yeah,
second that being I brought it up.
Yeah, I think with, you know, a project where public money is going to be in use, it would be in the interest of the applicant to let us know a little more about what we would be looking at. You know, might save everybody some time.
Are there any other thoughts? We have a motion to bring this to the January 17th meeting. The 17th, is that right? Second Monday in January, Tuesday? Tuesday.
Just the comment I'd make there is, frankly, we've received some criticism for things that are perceived as delays to businesses wanting to move things along, and this would push it back another month. And frankly, I'd say if we're going to do it, let's just go ahead and do it. So I was prepared to introduce the resolution as it is, and Anthony jumped the gun on me there. So since we're dealing with that motion first, I would suggest that we vote down the motion to wait till January and then vote on the resolution and go ahead now.
All right.
Can I ask one more question quickly?
Yes,
Sarah?
please.
Sorry to,
Yeah.
just so I'm clear on what we're voting on in terms of time. If we met at that if the council met at January 17th, it wouldn't impede the process for the business and the application. That still could move forward, or would that be because we're dealing with Christmas and the New Year, I don't know how much work's gonna get done before then anyway, so.
I don't think we have a good
I mean, it's
answer.
in line with the potential for the DEP development grant. Right. And that's due February 1st, so.
Yep, sort of. Because that's due in February.
The analysis would have to be
You
done.
have a plan in place and a timeline to submit to you, correct?
But if we're just in the process.
So my concern would be is if us delaying this till then would impede this moving forward. I would not be in favor of it. However, if by delaying this still falls in line with the business to move forward with the new council, with their blessing, I think makes complete sense, Mayor. I would be in favor of delaying it, so I just want to make sure
I think we can make that work in January if that's what the council is more comfortable doing and would like to see a little bit more information. I think we can make that work.
Thank you. Sorry to.
Could it go to a committee of the whole, or no?
Yes.
Could, yeah.
I suppose it could go to the committee, the whole meeting Wednesday before that 17th, so. You all right with that? Amending your motion?
Yep. The first official meeting after the first meeting.
Got it.
I'm,
All right.
I'm willing to second that.
Okay, so the motion is to move this to the first official meeting after the first meeting of the new council. Everyone understand what we're voting on? All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Good job, team.
All right. Thank you, Clara.
Yep.
Under presentation of claims, we have claims in the amount of $1,042,135.65. If anyone has any questions, we'll direct them to our city finance
I
director.
will offer the resolution to pay the bills.
Thanks,
I'll
Jim.
second it, but I got a question too.
Are you sure you want to do that? Go ahead, Anthony.
My question is, under the tax abatement housing rebate program, I wonder if, and I don't expect you to have this off the top of your head, but you're always surprising. Obviously, there's $25,000 that we're cutting checks back to people on. I wondered what is our actual current liability on the housing rebate program?
So we have 47 approved houses. So it's going to about double for next year. And we did put that in the levy because we went from a 25,000 something levy to a 54, I think, if I remember right.
Right.
Does that help?
Yep.
As far as calculating the actual, and again, it's a maximum of 5 years or $5,000, and granted, most of them will hit the $5,000 before the 5 years, so.
So if they all did, we have 47 approved, that's 235,000.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you for doing the quick math.
But that's not really a liability. They pay it in and we pay it back. It's not like we're paying them money that they.
It's a liability.
So,
Yeah, but it's a revenue as well.
Yeah, it's a revenue as well. But
Net neutral.
We have to pay it back.
But it's a net neutral. I mean, when you hear liability, I assume it's like that's our debt.
all right. So we have a resolution and a second to pay the bills. Any other questions? Roll call, please.
Rupert.
Yes.
Arneson.
Yes.
Thompson.
Yes.
Gustafson.
Yes.
Hicks.
Yes.
Fish.
Yes.
Hooker.
Yes.
Harmon.
Yes.
That resolution is approved. There are no board, committee, or department reports or reports from staff or administrative officers. Under old business, we'll need a motion appointing and reappointing board and commission members. There's a list of those members in your packets. I don't think I need to go through and read them all unless someone would like me to. I would just make the note that there are still openings on the Bicycle and Pedestrian Advisory Committee as well as the Human Rights Commission. If anyone is interested, or if you know anyone who might be interested, please encourage them to get an application in to Lynn. So, is there a motion from someone approving the appointments as presented?
I'll offer that.
Thank you, Krista.
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tom. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries.
Ben?
There is no new business. It's already time to announce for Christmas, the closure. So Lynn, do you have anything pressing you want to talk about?
But Glenn might with upcoming snow.
Snow removal?
Well, hopefully we're done with this current round. We'll have to do a little cleanup tomorrow, obviously, but the parking emergency is ending tonight at 11:59. So,
So I don't know how we get that out exactly, but I know I did get a call. So just remind people, it's the days of the month correlated with the house number, is that correct?
That's correct.
During a snow emergency?
During a snow emergency when that's declared, and it switches at 5 PM each day. So it goes from the whatever odd or even day through that night into the next day, 5 PM.
Okay.
So.
Clear as
Clear
snow.
mud, yeah.
All right. Scott?
When we passed the motion to appoint and reappoint a number of board and commission members, I believe there must have been at least a handful that are dropping or that are going off, having been on the boards. And I thought it would be appropriate to have a motion or a resolution, I'm not sure which, thanking those that served for their time on those boards and commissions.
Yeah, thank you. I know Lynn always sends a very nice letter from the city that acknowledges their service and commitment to the city. So I think that a motion to that effect would just be a nice thing to include in that letter. So there's a motion. Would someone like to?
I'll second.
Second, Jim. Thank you. All in favor of that motion, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. That motion carries. Thank you, Scott. And with that, if there's no other business to come before the council, we're adjourned.
Thank you, Mayor.
Yay.